Okay, hey everyone, welcome to an episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we're revisiting a brand that is, quite special to the channel. It's Traska. A little about them. They were headquartered out of Jacksonville Beach, Florida, founded by John Mack, with the intention of making a watch that you could wear without worrying about, a true tool watch fit for any activity. Within the everyday watch vein of blending both versatile and, sporty and dressy attributes all into one and not just being one dimensional. So I love that here we have a great example with the Commuter, the Freediver, and the Summiteer, all in blue colorways, all different blues, all different finishes as well. We have sunray, we have glossy, we have matte, we have multi-level, we have 3D Lume, we have traditional applied indices. There's just a lot here to enjoy, and these are all relatively current in terms of the generations, apart from the Summiteer on the far right, which is going to be one generation behind. But the reason why I'm getting all these watches together on screen for you guys after, quite a while of owning, is going to be that, yes, they are dropping and restocking soon. So they will be returning November 30th. At 11 a.m. Eastern time. So at the time of recording this, guys, this is before then. I wanted to give you guys a heads up. You got about 2 weeks at the time of recording this, and I expect that some folks are going to watch this within those 2 weeks and get a jump on getting one of these before they sell out. And the rest of you might just be revisiting to see three great watches next to each other. Or maybe, since each one of these three would make a great candidate for a one watch collection, maybe you're trying to figure out which blue dial is the best for you, or maybe you're getting an idea of the different size ranges. And there are quite a few different types of configurations you can get depending on the run, depending on if you like a date or a no date, etc., depending on if you like, the larger, medium, or smaller sizes. So you do have quite a few options. These ones, of course, are going to be more tailored to my personal preferences because although I've reviewed, of course, many Traskas along the way, I've also owned a few, bought a few, and these are some that I do consider genuine keepers within the collection that I wear enough to where I do have a little bit more depth in terms of my wear experience with them. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get these pieces in hand, and take a closer look. Okay guys, now since I've reviewed all three of these models previously, if you want the in-depth reviews, definitely do check the channel history. For those of you that are more interested in just seeing them all next to each other, hey, this is that. Also, for those of you that are interested in a heads up on Restock, guys, November 30th, 2025, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Again, I just got the email for this. It's not like John sent me out any new watches or anything. I just know from my comment section, some of people's biggest complaints, which are, I guess, good complaints to have for your company, are that there aren't enough of them to go around. So the demand has not, been aligned with the supply. So there's going to be more demand than there is for supply, which can be fun in terms of acquiring that particular model, that particular configuration that you're looking for, that size, that colorway, which can give you even more satisfaction. And then just completely from objective terms, these are quite satisfying watches, just because of they're very feature rich. They all have scratch resistant hard coatings, toolless micro adjusting clasps, and very classic good looks that I think are quite, again, classic and transcendent of current contemporary trends, which I can appreciate. We're going to start with this being kind of one of the more newer watches, the Commuter. And this was, actually their first watch was this one, second watch, that one. This one came down the line eventually, but it is still very, very good. This is their Commuter 38 in the Adriatic blue colorway, referenced 8233, which is the fifth and current generation, and what they'll be restocking. This colorway on the 38 millimeter, I don't believe is available for this next run, but it's still a looker. And if you like this, I believe you can get it in the 36 millimeter range as well. Now, 38.5 millimeters, 10.6 millimeters thick, 46 millimeters lug to lug, 20 millimeter lugs, drilled lugs, domed, box dome sapphire with inner anti-reflective coating with 100 meters of water resistance and a screw down crown. You're getting a wonderful thin movement in the Miyota 9039 with a 42-hour power reserve, a 4 hertz sweep that does beat at 28,800 vibrations per hour, and it is quite nice. And again, this is going to be a really great kind of Oyster perpetual alternative. And a lot of people who want an everyday tool watch don't necessarily want to pay luxury prices for that. So they're not looking forward to paying $8,000-$9,000 for something that doesn't even have a date complication. And that's fair. But hey, maybe you like something that is very clean and svelte. And I'll say, if you were to compare these side by side, this is an honest homage. It is not a clone. I mean, because it has dual indices. I mean, how many watches have dual indices? It doesn't even have dual indices in all the same places at an Oyster Perpetual. So again, I consider this being within that space, especially when you look at the, fully articulated 3-link bracelet. When you look at, again, the features that are here, the hardened, layers and everything like that, it comes together in a really, really nice way. And for about $700, at least at the time of filming this, guys, it's one, I think, quite a compelling deal. Now, getting into the watch that started it all was their Freediver. This is the Chaouen blue. I probably mispronounced that, but it's a good blue, guys. As you can see, it's very shifty. So you look at it with less reflection on it, all of a sudden deep, dark, midnighty. And then you get a little bit more brightness and reflectivity, and all of a sudden it's this nice bright, but not overly bright or cartoony blue. It's a nice, real medium shade. And of course, it does have a glossy blue dial, which goes with that glossy ceramic bezel insert. Speaking of the bezel, 120 clicks. And just beautiful tactile engagement. Very, very satisfying. Oh, looks like I went slightly too far. But any excuse to hear more of those. And then I gotta make sure I'm not being affected by the parallax effect. There is a slight amount. I could probably slightly rock it. Oh, went too far. Okay. That's just me being a perfectionist. We'll stop it there. Looks like it's might be a slight, ever so slight. Oh, no, I rock it, and then all of a sudden, perfect alignment. Okay. Now, this is a great color, great style. I mean, you could think of a comparable for this one being something like maybe a Tudor Black Bay 58 in the blue, except here you're going to be getting ceramic, you're going to be getting a fully lumed bezel insert, you're going to be getting gloss, you're going to be getting some things that, of course, the Black Bay blue don't have. And this by no means is an homage to the heritage Black Bay blue. I'm just, now it's becoming a tongue twister at this point. It's just something because of its size range at 40.5 millimeters, 12 millimeters thick, and 48 millimeters lug to lug, that I think is quite comparable. You're getting the Miyota 90-19 movement, also 42-hour power reserve. I mean, that's, of course, when you have the date. You get the Miyota 90-39 when you, or 90-39 with no date, and then with date, 90-19, which is going to have a lower hand stack and is going to overall allow you to have a thinner silhouette on the watch as a whole. And I mean, the transitions here, guys, are beautiful. Look at that high polished side. There's a bevel that rolls over, and then the very nice satin brushing that is still gorgeous, even with a top coat of hard coating on top. So the fact that it still looks that good, is that sharp, is again a testament. Even when you look at the beautiful transitions for the milling on this female end link, it is very nice. And again, things like fully articulated links there, things like screw pin construction, toolless micro adjustment on the clasp. It carries over and all those little details. And there's that line consistency, that brand consistency that a lot of big name brands still struggle to maintain because they have a range of watches. And I think that's really cool about micro brands is they can really focus. And of course, there are some brands that do a lot more and will have very I mean, actually, Traska's one that does have quite a few variants. But I will say, compared to a brand like a Tissot or a Seiko, right, that might have options in the same ranges, they also have options that are way more expensive, as well as some options that are a lot cheaper. Whereas Traska is going to be really within that space, right? You're thinking 700, about 735 there for the dive watch. Now, this is a Summiteer in the midnight blue colorway. It does have a satin, or I shouldn't say satin, it's a matte dial, but it does have a bit of I'd say a smooth texturing to it. As you can see there, it's not granular in terms of its matte effect. So I would say you could consider this a satin, not satin brushed, but like a matte satin. And I think it looks quite good. Very nice. It adds that little bit of dimension again, because you could easily be one of those brands that just says 369 Explorer style and just leave it at that. Here, they've just gone above and beyond. You have, of course, the 3D Lume blocks there, as well as that kind of sector callback by having that beautiful lowered section that does give you, again, a sector-like appearance without it being a traditional sector dial. So very cool. Of course, you have that outer minute track as well. Very handsomely done. Very well balanced, right? If it didn't have this portion, it might just look a bit open because the indices are pushed to the outer reaches. I'd like to see the indices brought slightly more centered, and then maybe increasing that outer track, maybe even adding a contrasting outer track there with like a white tone, and then with the darker colors in the middle, and then maybe do a white dial with a darker kind of outer track that does push everything slightly more centered. And for me, I think for the 38 millimeter in particular, it would help with the proportions and make the dial look just a little bit more balanced. I do think it is still quite an expansive dial, which some people really like. And if you have a really large wrist, you want to have a nice bold dial that it feels quite expansive and doesn't feel cluttered. But I think a lot of people the good news is they have options to get it in a 36 millimeter dial that does, or 36 millimeter case, which is going to shrink down the dial a bit. So yeah, I've reviewed all of these watches in the past, had them on wrist, all that good stuff. So all those videos still exist in depth. I don't want to take too much time on this, but what I'll do is we'll round all these up now and then get them ready for that low light transition portion, just so you guys can get an idea of how they look in the dark. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. Hey, check that out. Really, really strong lume. And of course, the dive watch is going to have more of it, right? And then you're going to go over to the Summiteer as an adventure watch and be very impressed by how bold and impactful that is. And then, of course, on the more refined, versatile side, you're going to have something like the Commuter, which is going to dress up beautifully, but still work for you in that darker situation. But one thing I always like to work in is going to be a bit of a low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it's nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes run like in less than optimal lighting. You guys can see there, when you look at the dial finishes between glossy, between sunray, between matte, they are all going to play with the light in different ways. Even you're going to notice the tones in the Adriatic blue versus the Chaouen blue, or the midnight blue. And again, probably mispronouncing some of the names of the blues, but I'm pretty sure I nailed midnight blue. But yeah, these are all just outstanding looking and wearing timepieces. And again, if you want the full review, when you want to see how they look like on wrist and everything, check out the other videos. My goal here was mostly to showcase what these look like next to each other, and then of course help get the word out before these are sold out again. So again, November 30th, 11 a.m. Eastern, guys. Commuter, Freediver, and Summiteer. I recommend all three of these. And again, these three units do live in my long-term collection, and they do get rotated in with quite a few other watches. And most of the watches are much more expensive than this. They really do just hit a sweet spot where micro brands have been able to offer a really, really high level of spec, a really high level of fit, finish, and now even, you know, as their own little kind of internal design iconography that carries over, right? Like I recognize these watches as being related, but in very fun, unique ways. And some might just know them for what they're alternatives to, but I will say that I've definitely met quite a few enthusiasts within, you know, frequenting my local SD chrono group meets that love a good Traska, and not because it is a cheaper version of an Oyster Perpetual, but because it is the finest version of a Traska that they like, which I think is fun too. So let me know what you all think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please hit like. And if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.